My favorite parody movie, probably Airplane. That was the first movie I ever saw boobs in, so it's always held a special place in my heart. I actually met Jim Abrams once, one of the writers of Airplane and the Naked Gun movies, and I told him that, and he just stared at me blankly. And it's probably something I'm going to remember on my deathbed. Hi, I'm Vera Drew. I'm the director, co-writer, and star. I also did some of the visual effects on The People's Joker, a queer coming-of-age comic book movie about an unfunny clown named Joker. And today I'm going to read some of the reviews from it, and I'm going to also react. Okay, Let Me Explain writes, 3 stars. This happened to my buddy Erica. Which is a funny spin on This Happened to My Buddy Eric, which I think was a Letterboxd review of Joker 2019. I love the idea that somebody named Eric would, transition into an Erica, but my last name's my dead name, so maybe that would happen. Jack Meyer writes, 4.5 stars. Apologies to the Lego Batman movie for now being the second gayest movie about Batman and the Joker. For me, it's just always subtext, I think that's what makes ours the gayest, is we're the first one to not make it subtext. It's just overt. Joker's literally trans in it. Jared Leto's Joker is literally trans in it, and that's revenge for Dallas Buyers Club. Madison McLean writes, 2 things are true at the same time. I'm glad this exists, and I did not like it at all. That is my favorite type of negative review, just because, it at least recognizes that this movie is important to a lot of people, and I assume that it's also just taking into account that it was very hard to make. And yeah, this movie's not for everybody. Kind of every bad review of this movie is usually, some of the things didn't work, or it didn't all quite work for me. And I'm like, yeah, me too. We threw everything at the wall. There's too many jokes in it. Let's look closer at Madison McLean and see what kind of things Madison does like at all. Okay. I mean, this is a pretty good top 4. Possession, The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, The Thing, and The Craft. What a chaotic top 4. They liked Walk Hard. I could get behind that. I'm surprised they didn't like this. It looks like they love parody movies, but maybe they hate clowns. Jamie Tram writes, 4.5 stars. All the best comic book movies are really about looking like a slut while acting like a bitch, which is, of course, a reference to one of the iconic needle drop that comes in the middle of The People's Joker. One of the best songs. I'm going to just go ahead and say the best song ever made, Back of the Truck by Mimi Zima. Look it up, and no, I don't know when the soundtrack for this movie's coming out. Stop bothering me on Twitter. I also don't know when there's going to be an international release. We're working on it. Ray writes, 4 stars. The best trauma dump I've ever seen. Not quite a compliment, but we'll take it. I mean, they gave me 4 stars. The movie is kind of a trauma dump, both in the sense that, it was like taking a 4-year-long shit of my trauma, and it's kind of like a dumpster full of trauma. Brandon Wilson. I wish it was Brian Wilson. I wish this was Brian Wilson's review, because I would give anything to know what Brian Wilson thinks of the movie. Brandon Wilson gives it 4.5 stars. What a stunning rebuke to the Nolanized realist comic book movie aesthetic and vindication of Joel Schumacher. I can promise you this film will change lives and inspire others to take the intellectual property corporations have positioned as our mythology and truly make it theirs in a way that the fat cats never intended. Now, my lawyers would want me to say at this moment that I am not suggesting other people do what I did. Do not go and take intellectual property. I can't legally advise you to do that. Joel Schumacher should be spoken in the same breath as people like Martin Scorsese or Steven Spielberg, just for how prolific he is as a filmmaker. I love his Batman movies. They certainly were my introduction to Batman. I saw Batman Forever, and seeing Nicole Kidman in that movie was kind of the thing that made me realize I was trans, and also just made me fall in love with these characters. He really just captures how operatic and big these stories are, and silly, while also really demanding you to take it seriously. And to me, that's what's so special about these characters. I also love Joel Schumacher's The Incredible Shrinking Woman with Lily Tomlin. I actually gave that movie to both my director of photography and our colorist as an example of hey, I need you to watch this just so that you know what I want this movie to look like color-wise. And they both had the same response of I don't really understand what you're saying. This is a movie about Lily Tomlin shrinking down and getting stuck in bathtubs and stuff, and you made a trans Joker movie. So I basically just said, I guess I just want it to be colorful. And for the record, I like Christopher Nolan a lot. I love The Prestige. I fucking love The Dark Knight Rises just because it is like, it's finally like approaching back in that like operatic place that I love so much about Batman. Shit AV Says writes 1 star, white people on Reddit syndrome, which is a totally fair critique of the film. And I'd actually like to use this as an opportunity just to say, I really wish my movie wasn't so white. It was kind of an accident. I think just because we were talking about alternative comedy and like pulling from that scene, which is just a disgustingly white scene, that's how it ended up being that way. But it's really hard to sit with that sometimes with a movie called The People's Joker that is trying to show the trans experience. I did want it to be not reflective of the universal trans experience just because I am a white trans woman with a ton of privilege. I'm literally a West Coast Hollywood elite. But yeah, would have loved to have gotten some more people of color in there. And rest assured, I am getting a lot of general meetings around Hollywood all over town now, and I'm not going to pull the ladder up with me. I really want to use my new platform as an indie darling to get as many people work as possible, especially people of color. But for the record, I don't go on Reddit. A Circus Rat writes 4.5 stars. No movie more accurately captures the queer experience and ideal of hanging out in an abandoned warehouse with your friends, making milquetoast Marxist speeches, discovering yourself, and committing minor felonies. I feel very seen by that. This movie really came from the experience of, needing to, kind of carve out my own comedy scene with my friends, and a lot of the time that was at an abandoned warehouse. I wish we had leaned into the Marxist thing even more in the movie, because I think people can kind of assume where my politics are, but I've always thought it was funny that the whole dirtbag left thing and how blurry it's gotten with comedy, because there's just so many people doing these political podcasts and making jokes. They're just not funny. I won't say which ones. But Tuck writes, 4 stars. The biggest laugh line for me is, "It's an aquatic taste. I'm penguin-pilled boots." That's actually a line that Nate Faustin improvised on set, and I didn't even catch it until I was editing, just because it really just rolled right off his tongue. Nate didn't memorize any of his scripted lines for the movie. That was something I was prepared for when we got to set, because I've been working with Nate for 10 years, and I know how he works, and I was prepared to do a little bit of improvising. The character's literally based on him, so I guess theoretically he can bring his own lines to the table, but I think in general it's kind of nice working with people who don't read the script, because David Liebehart, who plays Ra's al Ghul, was the same way. We had to go line by line with him. He didn't memorize a damn word of what Bree and I wrote, but I think that's why both performances are so fresh and exciting, is because there was a spontaneity to it. At least that's what I tell myself when I'm watching it. Darlene writes, "Movie feels like it's held together by tape." What a Darlene thing to say. But she says it's positive review. Which, you know what? I'm not going to go full roast mode on Darlene, because in many ways, I think that was one of the many things just as a creator that I really was trying to lean into, was the scrappiness of it. I could have spent the rest of my life working on green screen removal for this film, but A, my girlfriend would have left me and I would have went broke doing that, and B, just who wants to do that? I just want to tell a story, and I think I wanted to prove that you could tell a story using an aesthetic that feels like it's held together with tape. Darlene, I feel like we're kindred spirits. Darlene's top 4 is Red Shoes, Inland Empire, Husbands, and Phantom of the Paradise. Darlene, let's hang out. Inland Empire is definitely held together by tape. Inland Empire is David Lynch's The People's Joker, when you think about it. That's why I'm probably going to work backwards. When I'm 80 and on my 20th divorce and just paint and smoke cigarettes all day, I'll finally get to making my Eraserhead. David Lynch will never see that. I hope he doesn't go on the internet. Donatello, one of the Ninja Turtles, writes, "Bruh, this movie looks like a Nostalgia Critic video. Why is everyone freaking out over it?" I've never seen anything from Nostalgia Critic. I've never watched Channel Awesome, and it keeps coming up in reviews quite often, both in a positive way and in a negative way. In both hurt. If anything, I was really kind of ripping off the aesthetic that we kind of made at Absolutely Productions, at Tim and Eric and stuff, and I think that's maybe what Channel Awesome was borrowing it from. The good news is none of you can hurt me. I am a cold, empty person. So many people have called this film genius. So many people have compared me to a cinematic Prometheus that I literally have democratized filmmaking by making a film with this IP. So I've personally reached an event horizon with reviews. Good reviews, I feel nothing. Bad reviews, I feel even less. Let's see what this Ninja Turtle likes. Let's see what doesn't look like a nostalgia critic video for Donatello. Pee-wee's Big Adventure, Hellboy, Drive, and Spider-Man 2. You know what? I don't want to talk shit about any of these movies because they're actually great. Kath Barbadoro writes 4 stars. If you would like to be overcome with emotion during a David Liebehart monologue, this is the only movie for you. I completely agree. Like, I think David Liebehart just breaks hearts in this movie. There was no pun intended there. I'm actually incapable of making puns. It's part of my brand of neurodivergence. But he gives a really emotional and evocative performance in this film, just a very tender and sweet one. Especially there's a campfire scene with him and I that's kind of comes at this point in the movie where my character's facing a crossroads and needs to decide how she's going to move forward with her life, and it's just one of the most beautiful scenes. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm like kissing my own ass here, but it's just one of the most beautiful scenes I've ever seen in a film, and I think it's because of just how beautiful David looks on camera and the tenderness that he brings to everything he does. I made a show a few years ago called I Love David with David Liebehart, and that was right when I started using hormones and began my transition, and he was actually one of the first people I came out to. So he was kind of this like queer Yoda-like figure in my life, so that's why we kind of put him in this sort of Obi-Wan Kenobi deconstruction role in the film, just because he's always kind of been that for me, a real I mean, the guy was abducted by aliens, so how could you not feel spiritual when you're next to him? Clara Curtis writes 5 stars. Watching felt like seeing a version of my most authentic self on screen, a me who could revel and writhe and laugh and cry and explore transition and comedy and anti-fascism with an unapologetic ear-to-ear grin. If I hadn't had such a long press day before this and was just, I'm fully dissociating right now because that's what happens to me on press days, I would be crying right now, because when people say stuff like this, it's just, I really thought I was just making a movie for like 15-year-old me and my friends, and I made it because I thought it really was coming from this place of feeling like there wasn't trans stories out there that looked like mine. So the fact that anybody would resonate with it on any level means the world, let alone like to this degree. So thanks, Clara Curtis. Morgan writes 5 stars. Fuck. The Citizen Kane of movies for clownish, nerdy, terminally online T-girls. Don't remember the last time I left a theater feeling so ecstatic, so seen. God damn. I don't appreciate Letterboxd or Morgan for putting me in a position where I had to take the Lord's name in vain. But I like the positive review. Love the enthusiasm. Am I going to do this? Am I going to confess? I've never seen Citizen Kane all the way through. I know Rosebud is the sled. I know it's like about a newspaper mogul. And I know that the Brain in Pinky and the Brain, his voice was modeled after Orson Welles. That's really all I know about Citizen Kane. I think if anything, this movie is actually the Shakes the Clown of movies for clownish, nerdy, terminally online T-girls. And I'm not just shouting out Bobcat Goldthwait because he just followed me on Instagram. I also just love that movie. This has been Letterboxd. Vera Drew reads your reviews. Some were good, some were bad. Some made you think. Some were just, an attempt to do a meme, which, at the end of the day, that's really all cinema is about, is making memes. That's all the chaos magic is about, too, is making memes. And a meme is a sigil, and the People's Joker is chaos magic. Please see it in theaters. It's really important that you go see it in theaters. That really helps with expansion. And I did this movie just to make a lot of money. I'm in a lot of debt because of this movie. That makes it look like I'm being sad. And you're supposed to be gracious and positive and optimistic when you're promoting a movie. So I'll just say, thanks for having me.